Now, we can also do a hypothesis test for a contingency table using the p-value method, which we are going to use StatCrunch to do. So once we get into StatCrunch, we're going to go into the tables, contingency, and then you have to choose whether you have a summary or the data, depending on the information you have, and then it will do the full computations for us. All right, so as you can see, I have my information from the problem entered into StatCrunch. So I just used the heading here of P for placebo, the 5 milligram dose and the 10 milligram dose, and then I just put whether they got a cold or did not get a cold, and then I put my values in here. So now in order to have StatCrunch do this hypothesis test through a contingency table, I need to go to Stat, and then I'm going to go to Tables, and I'm going to select Contingency. Now all I have here is a summary of the information, so I'm going to choose with Summary. First thing it asks me for here is to select the columns. Now you want to make sure that you only select the columns that have the data values in there. So my data values are in the P, the 5 milligram, and the 10 milligram columns. I do not want to select the variable 1 column because that just has my headings in there. So I'm going to select those 3. And then my next thing down here, it says, what are my row labels? Well, my rows are over here in variable 1, the labels for them, so I'm going to select variable 1. The column labels, I have those just as the headings in the chart, so I don't need to select anything there. And I want to just come down here and make sure that I have the chi-square test for independence selected. Then I can go ahead and select compute, and it gives me my readout table here. Now it shows me the contingency table with the totals along the sides here, which we had already computed those earlier. And then down here it tells me my test statistic. Notice that it is slightly different than what we had computed. We had computed 1.473 and they computed 1.485. Well, theirs is actually going to be more accurate than what our hand computation was, and that was due to the fact that I had rounded my values when I was doing the hand computation. They also give us our p-value here. So just like we have done with all of our other hypothesis tests, if we are using the p-value method, we would then compare our p-value to what our significance level is, and that would determine whether or not we could reject. So in this case, since our p-value was larger than our alpha, because our alpha was 0.05, that would tell us that we do not reject the null hypothesis, which is the same thing that we got before when we were doing the critical value method. Okay, so what we looked at in this video was just what a contingency table was and what does it mean to do a test for independence. And then we looked at how to set up the hypothesis test. And first we have to find our requirements. And then we're going to set up our null and our alternative hypothesis. We will do the test statistic, and that can either be done by hand or using technology. And then you'll either use the critical value method or the p-value method to determine what your results are from that test. And then we also looked at how to do all of this in StatCrunch.